And for newer members, you should be excited. We haven't had Tina in forever, but she used to be the clerk who worked with us all the time, and she's the best. I mean, Sean also great, but Tina.
You got to go with that, right?
Just in case Sean's watching.
Give me one more minute.
Oh yeah, take your time, please.
Okay, you're all set.
Awesome. So welcome everyone to our August Providence Environmental Sustainability Task Force meeting. I am Sue Anderbois, the current chair of the task force. Tina, would you mind please taking roll call?
Yes, Chair Susan Anderbois.
I'm here.
Vice Chair Julian Drick is absent. Catherine Van Amberg is absent. Carlos Garcia Quijano.
He's trying to unmute himself. He's here.
I'm here.
I just need.
Yes.
Carlos, you're here.
I'm here. Yes, yes.
Thank you. Jesus Holguin is absent. Kevin Purdy is absent. Amelia Rose.
Here.
Batik Kumba.
Here.
So you have 4 present and 4 absent. You do not have a quorum.
Okay, great. Julian Drick should be joining us any moment now. He's running in from another meeting. And before we get started, also want to introduce our soon-to-be 2 new members who are just waiting to be confirmed, but really excited that they're joining us at the table today. So we have Priscilla De La Cruz and Susanna Yim. Yay! And so I thought we could start, actually, Julian and I, when we were planning the agenda, thought we could start by just, since we have our full slate now, as soon as you guys get confirmed, thought that we could go around and do some introductions just so that folks get to know each of us. So I thought we could just say our names, our preferred pronouns, and just a little bit about yourself, a sentence or two. And I also want to acknowledge that Jesus has joined for roll call.
So noted, you now have quorum.
Excellent. And it looks like 2 Vatics, but 1 is Jesus.
I sent Jesus my link, so
Okay.
I don't know why I could never, like, is the link in the Google invite or is it a separate invite?
It's a separate invite.
All right, and so if it's in my email, that's lost. So I probably just kind of need it again, or like whatever that is. Yeah.
Okay, for September. Ooh. Hey, Sue, should we use your REJC email?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'll make sure that the clerk's office has the right email for you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tina. Thanks, Jesus. So we were just gonna, Jesus, all you missed was we did roll call and we introduced our 2 almost new members, Priscilla and Susanna. So we thought that we could go around and just do some introductions and hear a little bit about folks. So name, pronouns, maybe what neighborhood you live or work in, whatever you identify with, and then just a little bit about yourself. And I can kick off because where we going? I'm Sue Anderbois. Go with she, her, hers pronouns. I live on the east side near Libet Park. And my mind is a little blank today, so I apologize. No fun facts about me right now. My day job is I work at the Nature Conservancy, though I do not represent them here on the task force. And yeah, I'll tell you more about me later because right now my mind is a blank. So I'm going to kick it over to Carlos because you're next on my screen.
Hi. Hi, I'm Carlos Garcia Quijano. I live in Elmhurst, formerly in Mount Pleasant, moved like a half a mile about 6 months ago. And I am ethnically Puerto Rican, been in Providence for 10 years. I am a professor at URI. I'm an ecological and environmental anthropologist. And that's it. I've been here for a few years already in this great task force.
Let's kick it over to Amelia.
Hi, I'm Amelia, and I've been on the task force for a very long time. I think maybe 11 years, maybe 12 years. And I don't live in Providence anymore. When I started on the task force, I did, but I live in Massachusetts now. But I work in Rhode Island and in Providence, and I work for Groundwork Rhode Island. And that's it.
Awesome. Thanks, Amelia. Let's go to Jesus.
Hey, my name is Jesus. Pronouns he, him, or they, or anything as long as there's not a negative intent. I wear a couple hats. I work at the Environmental Justice League of Rhode Island, and I also work at Youth Pride Inc. In this room, I am representing the Racial Environmental Justice Committee. Some things about me. My birthday just passed, so I just turned 27, and that is a fun. Damn, Amelia, that means like you've known me as long as you've been on this task force. Very exciting. For my birthday, I got to ask folks for money towards a new phone, and it just came in. And so I am excited to be connected to people because it's like I haven't had a phone in a while. And I think in general, just me, I just try to make, I fight for holistic safe spaces in Providence, and like we can talk more about that in the future.
Thanks, Jesus. How about Vatic?
Hello, Vatic. He, him pronouns, and I'm with Jesus representing the Racial Environmental Justice Committee here on this task force. And I'm supposed to say like an exciting fact or just a fact of something?
Maybe just any fact. Yeah. Anything you're feeling to like sharing today.
Sure. Over the past weekend, so I'm an artist. So over the past 2 weeks, I just got done doing a performance for 2 weeks straight with a bunch of other artists. So I'm feeling good about that. And that's something I'll share. Check out.
Nice. Before we move on, Tina, in the attendees, there's a 508 phone number. That's Leah from the Office of Sustainability. Would you mind please making her a panelist when you have a second? She had to dial in.
I can't make her a panelist, but I can rename her and allow her to talk
Oh, cool. Perfect.
if she's dialing in. This is Leah, you said? Leah Bamberger?
Yeah, that's Leah Bamberger. Yeah. And while she's doing that, let's move on to Priscilla.
Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be a soon-to-be member of the task force. Let's see, quick random things. My day job is with Green Energy Consumers Alliance. I'm not representing them on the task force. I'm the president of the Environment Council Rhode Island. I don't think I'm not representing them either, but I do provide updates on behalf of the council, which I'll do later. And let's see, in fact, I recently moved to the Elmhurst area during the pandemic, which was not fun, but I'm glad that's past me. I've been here since April, so I'm getting settled at the new space. My ethnicity is Dominican, and I grew up in the south side of Providence.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Thanks, Priscilla. Welcome. So excited. And last but not least, before we move to the Office of Sustainability, Susanna.
Hello, everyone. Susanna, she, her pronouns. And I was born and raised in Rhode Island. And as a current, I live in Providence, near Hope High School. So I think it's, I don't know. So East Side, whatever neighborhood specifically that is. I am with the Sunrise Movement, but in not representing the per se, more so as a community member. I plan to study international relations in grad school, and really excited to be well, soon to be member of this amazing task force. And yeah, I'm really dedicated to doing anti-racist work and building community around that. And a fun fact is that I have a Mongolian blue spot around my eye. In case if you're ever wondering if she's okay, or like, did she forget to put eyeshadow on the other eye? And I like to write, I write poetry. And yeah, thanks for having me here.
Yay, so pumped to have you. Let's go to the Office of Sustainability too for some intros. How about we start with Emily?
Sure. Hi, I'm Emily Koo. I go by she, her pronouns. I've been with the Office of Sustainability since the end of December in 2019. It's been strange times working remotely since March. And I work with Leah and Corey and Dino still, and as well as our intern this summer.
Wait, Dino's still there?
He provides some support. He's retired, but our energy manager role is still empty, so he's available for questions and helpful. I guess other info on the west end of Providence. I'm a renter.
Thanks, Emily. How about Ellie? Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Ellie. I live in Wisconsin, but I go to school in Providence. And this summer I am interning with the Office of Sustainability.
Nice. Leah, are you able to introduce yourself? Maybe not right now. Maybe she's not in a good place. Tina, do you want to introduce yourself, or you don't want to? Either way, whatever makes you happy.
Sure, Tina Mastriani. I'm the first deputy city clerk. As Sue mentioned before, I clerked this committee for many, many years and have missed all of you. So it's really good to see everybody. But we clerk your meetings, we take your notes and minutes, and you know, put all the information out there that you give to us, we forward to the public.
The clerk's office is the best. And Leah is trying to connect into audio. She just texted, I think someone needs to unmute her maybe.
All right.
To introduce herself.
It's actually not letting me unmute her. I don't know why.
Okay.
Maybe her phone is muted somehow.
Leah, it might be on your end.
Do you see two Bambergers?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi. Sorry for the confusion here. Hopefully this works. So my name's Leah Bamberger. I'm the Director of Sustainability. I'm actually on vacation today, so I'm really happy to be joining you all. I am in Virginia currently, in the Shenandoah Valley area. Very lovely out here. I was just in a river. That was nice. And yeah, I'm just on a little road trip. Kind of living.
Yeah, your connection is a little weak.
My fun fact is that I've always had a dream of having
Leah,
you're
a camper van that I can like travel around and sleep in, and I don't have a van, but I have been kind of living and sleeping out of my Prius for a few days, which has been fun.
Leah, you're coming in like a robot, so I think we're gonna We might mute you. It sounds like you're hanging out in an RV and driving around.
Okay.
And I
I
think
don't
that's
know what to
making
do
it,
about that.
yeah, it's coming in a little like tinny.
Yeah.
Okay.
There she is.
Okay. And then also acknowledging that Vice Chair Julian Drix has since joined us. And Julian, we're just doing introductions if you want to introduce yourself. We're just saying names, pronouns, neighborhood you live in, and then whatever information you would like to share by way of introduction, especially to our newer members.
Hi all, I'm Julian, he, his pronouns. I live in Washington Park, and sorry for being late. Happy to be here with you all, really happy that you're joining the group here, and I'll share more as we go. I'm looking forward to get to know you better.
Thanks for being here, Julian. Okay, let's.
Sue, can you hear me now?
Yeah, much clearer now.
Okay. All right. I was able to dial in and make everything sync up.
Oh, nice. Oh, perfect. Yeah, you sound much clearer. That's great.
Okay. Did you hear anything, or should I do over?
Yeah, why don't you do a quick do-over, and then we'll jump to
Okay.
the next piece. Thanks, Leah.
Okay, I'll be quick. My name's Leah Bamberger. I'm the Director of Sustainability. I'm calling in here from the Shenandoah Valley. I'm on vacation, and I've been camping and sort of living out of my Prius for the past 4 days, so it's been a lot of fun.
Thanks for joining us on your day off, Leah. Dedication. Cool. Let's jump to our first agenda item. So on the agenda, just as a quick review, we have a few things. The first is we're going to talk a little bit about city council resolutions that were passed in the last month or so. Then we're going to get some updates from the Office of Sustainability, and then a presentation from Emily and Ellie, I think, about the metrics of the climate justice strategy, and they're going to ask us for some additional feedback. I know we talked about this a little bit a few meetings ago. We're going to get some ECRI updates, and then we're going to go around the table. So lots of good stuff on here. So let's just jump right in. And you all should have gotten the agenda because I sent it to you. But if you need it again, am I able to share my screen? I can bring it up on the screen so you all can see it.
Should be. Sue, let me know if you can't.
Yeah, can you guys all see this? Thumbs up. Thanks, Jesus. Okay, cool. So the first thing we're just going to talk about is these first two city council resolutions, which feel free to click on them in the agenda, especially for those of you participating from the public. This is all on the clerk's site, which you obviously needed to have already seen to get the link to join. So the two resolutions that city council passed right before they went on recess. One was approving the city's community choice aggregation plan, which now heads to the PUC. And y'all will remember that our July meeting was done as a public forum or a public hearing for that community choice aggregation plan. And so you guys all saw that and got to comment on it, as did the public, before the city council then passed it the next day. And if you guys weren't watching along at home, it was a bit of a nail biter because they almost just sent it to committee and we were like, no, but silently from our homes saying that because you can't be there in person. And but then they passed it, and it's on its way to the PUC. Leah or Emily or Ellie, do you guys have anything to add? Or Priscilla, actually, do you guys have anything to add to that?
I think Leah will provide a little update on where we are with CCA and the sustainability updates.
Cool. And the other one is the city council passed a resolution to support becoming an anti-racist organization, particularly in support of the work of the Office of Sustainability and the Racial and Environmental Justice Committee. And so I just wanted to highlight that they did this and also celebrate Vatic, Jesus, and the rest of the REJC for really putting this together and working with the council to get it passed. So I just wanted to make sure we highlighted that. And if Vatic or Jesus, no pressure if you guys wanted to add anything, but also no pressure. Just wanted to make sure people saw this.
I'll just say that I think that it's a good start to build a conversation around doing this work. And I hope that as a task force, especially adding the new members who are interested in focusing on anti-racism, that we can bring this to the city in a meaningful way and help to undo the racism that are in the city departments. And then also, I don't know if the city within their update sustainability, if they could talk about any of the steps that they've been taking around bringing this to life.
Great. Should we just roll? I'll stop sharing screen. Should we just roll right into the updates from the Office of Sustainability then? Leah, is that you or is that Emily who's planning to give the updates?
Leah, are you in a good spot to
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, happy to give the updates. If something happens and I lose or get disconnected, Emily, please step in. So first, I guess since we were just talking about it on the community choice aggregation, it went to the PUC on Friday, so it's in their hands now. This week, at some point, we should get a docket number, and then within a few weeks after that, our consultant will be working with the PUC staff to set out a hearing date and potential decision dates. So more to come on next steps on that front, but the PUC will be holding a public hearing. And then I wanted to just give an update on sort of general staff capacity and how the city has been responding to COVID and the resulting sort of financial crisis that we're currently in. Our staff capacity across many, if not all, departments has been reduced through the work share program. My team.
Leah, you went on mute.
Leah, you bounced off.
Oops.
Oh, there you
I
are.
don't know how that happened. Hi. So we're still participating in the work share program. We're hoping to shift after Labor Day to everyone being working on a 4-day work week instead of a 3-day work week. And there's still a lot of decisions to be made around the overall budget and how that will impact our department and our work. But we do hope to get a little bit more of our capacity back following Labor Day, but nothing has been decided yet. But I don't have really anything firm in terms of what that will look like at this point. Other updates on the green justice zones and the CIP planning. So just as a reminder, the city allocated $1 million to be invested in the 2 green justice zones, and we're working with the REJC on identifying projects that the community would like to see invested in with those dollars. And there's, I think the survey actually just closed, and they'll be hosting a community meeting. Is it this Thursday, Vatic, Jesus?
Yep.
All right. To talk about and finalize what projects will be moving forward. The finalists were in South Providence. It was a resilience hub and/or it improved access to the waterfront, possibly at, I believe it's Public Street. We're hoping that both of those will be able to move forward if they're supported by the community. And then in Olneyville, also it's another resilience hub for Olneyville, and or investments in green spaces and street improvements there. A few other updates on the grant front. We are working on contracting under a grant it's actually under the Department of Agriculture, their Natural Resource Conservation Services arm. And it's for a watershed study. We've been working with the Woonasquatucket River Watershed Council on this grant, so that is moving forward, which is pretty exciting. So it will be a study initially, and then it enters another phase if there's support for the project from municipalities that are identified in the study, then there's further funding for implementation all around flood mitigation and resilience. We're also a finalist for a Robert Wood Johnson Foundation grant. We had an interview, I believe it was last week, and that grant is, the proposal was around creating pathways for community-owned housing and cooperative housing in Providence. So this would be community-owned, sustainable housing in the city. So it's definitely in line with the Climate Justice Plan and emerged from a community-driven process. So we're fingers crossed on that one. We should find out in the next couple weeks. And Emily, I'm going to let you talk about pesticide-free PVD, but then just a few notes on, given our capacity reductions, we did have to put a few projects and programs on hold. So as Emily mentioned, Dino retired in last January, and we did post the position originally, but we did not get any qualified applicants. And then COVID hit, and there was a hiring freeze, and now we're really relying on that vacancy as salary savings at the moment. So we're not able to post that position yet. So a lot of the work that Dino was supporting, specifically the Repower PVD program, is completely on hold at this point. Dino's doing a great job keeping up with energy management and tracking our bills, but definitely at a reduced capacity. And then we have reduced our communications, our newsletter. We usually do it monthly. We did one this summer. We've done two since COVID hit, and then social media we're trying to keep up with, but it's certainly not at the capacity that it used to be. And Emily has been doing a great job staying on top of plastic bag enforcement and processing exemption requests. But certainly we haven't been able to really do the proactive outreach, especially that we would like to do, especially given that as of October 22nd, 2020, there will be no more exemptions for excess inventory allowed. So those are all the updates I had outside of the pesticide-free PVD campaign that Emily will talk about, and then the data and metrics that Emily and Ellie are going to speak to.
Yeah, so for pesticide-free, we have been partnering with organizations including Clean Water Action in Rhode Island, Audubon in Rhode Island, and National Organization Healthy Babies, Bright Futures to reduce neurotoxic chemical exposures in parks and green spaces throughout the city. So this year we've worked on a report that highlights our own Parks Department's efforts to limit exposures to chemicals in our pesticide and fertilizer treatments. And then with this as a best practice, we intend to launch a pesticide-free campaign targeted at reducing pesticides in residential lawns and gardens, as well as other toxins in our homes. I'm not sure if, I think we probably discussed this in the past, but I just wanted to highlight the campaign and also note that our Department of Public Works has also been looped into our pesticide-free conversations as it relates to rodent prevention. I wanted to highlight the rodent prevention piece because our city, like cities across the country, have seen an increase in rodents amid the pandemic, and it's been an issue that's being raised by the council. And because residents can request rodent baiting from our own Department of Public Works, we're working with DPW to encourage and require preventative behavioral changes before putting toxins in the environment. So we wanted to make that connection between our work to reduce chemicals, both in our parks and in our residents, but just citywide to kind of foster that understanding across the city and with our elected officials about kind of being cautious of just baiting with chemicals, as that isn't really a holistic solution.
I just wanted to add to that. Thanks, Emily. The rodent issue in particular, not only is the rodent baiting, have negative consequences beyond just, addressing rats, it's just proven to be not effective in actually eliminating rodent populations or really having a significant, it can help, but so long as there's the source, which is trash, food, dumpsters, there will always be rodents in cities. There's just no way of actually eliminating, the best way to address the problem is through reducing the source of food. So we really want to help get the message out that, where there's trash, there will be rodents. And we need to be doing everything we can to help residents and businesses maintain, their properties in such a way that does not create and contribute to this issue.
Yeah, and I'll leave a space for comment, but I also wanted to give a space for Ellie to provide an overview of some research that she and another fellow for the summer did on the CIP and investments. But Sue, did you have any questions on the Pesticide-Free Campaign?
I don't, but also was just going to open it up to see if anyone had any overall questions on that, the overall update, because that's a lot. So any comments or questions from task force members?
I just was curious about the resilience hubs in Olneyville and Washington Park. Just curious if that what that looks like, or if I should just go to the meeting that you're hosting on Thursday.
No problem. I can't believe no one wants to talk about rodents more. But resilience hubs are a concept that it's basically a community-owned. What?
Oh, I was gonna say, I don't know if, oh, okay, no. Vatic says proceed, Leah.
Okay. Vatic, feel free to jump in. Resilience hubs are a community-owned, community-centered space that provides resources to community 365 days a year, but specifically under a time of distress or any sort of disaster. It's a place where the community can go to get resources. It might just be connecting with each other. It could be simple as charging your phone, getting water, access to, if the power's out, hopefully this facility could be, have like a battery and solar power so it can be operational when the grid is down, that sort of thing. So it can take a lot of shapes depending on what the needs of the community, but it's really something that is designed to fill a gap where like FEMA and FEMA or REMA, often aren't able to connect with community in that deep way and provide those sorts of like community-oriented resources.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions or comments? Cool. Emily, do you want to keep going, or was it Ellie who was going to talk about the CIP work? Go ahead, Ellie.
Yeah, so I'll just summarize one of the projects I've been working on. Along with another intern, Tim Shea, I've been researching how Providence can incorporate resiliency and equity into its capital improvement plan, or CIP. So Tim and I looked at Providence's current CIP and identified a few weaknesses or areas for improvement. One of these is that the current administration does prioritize equity when it prioritizes different CIP projects, but there's no institutionalized process that makes sure that future allocations will continue to be distributed equitably. And there's also not much codifying of values or transparency. So we summarized some case studies of other cities, including Oakland, Miami, Baltimore, Austin, and New York City. And then based on this research, I'll just list our recommendations for the city. So first, the city should allocate resources for management of CIP reforms in the form of something like a CIP working group. Secondly, to increase data transparency and accessibility, the city should analyze the historic allocations of funds, which would look something like a map that maybe visualizes the amount of funds invested in each neighborhood in resilient projects. And this should also be made available online. And then third, there should be a project prioritization scoring tool, which would be something like a rubric that all future projects would be graded on. And this could have areas such as equity, community health, and resiliency. And then fourth, we recommend a climate resiliency implementation tool, which would be a similar rubric, but this would be focused towards more technical climate resiliency priorities. And then finally, we recommend that this kind of research that we did in looking at the CIP and comparing it to other cities becomes a process that's repeated every few years so that the CIP process stays up to date and make sure that it continually makes sure that the funds are being invested and distributed equitably.
Great. Thank you, Ellie and Tim. I think that wraps up our Office of Sustainability updates.
Oops. Does anyone have any questions for Ellie? Thank you, Ellie and Tim. Cool. And just to share real quickly, there was a discussion of the event that the REJC is hosting on Thursday. If you guys can see my screen, this is the Facebook invite for it. So it's Thursday, 6 to 7:30 p.m. And if you go on Facebook to the Racial Environmental Justice Committee of Providence, you'll be able to find all the details and stuff. So just wanted to show you that so you could join. Emily, before we switch over to the metrics, should we quickly do that? Well, not quickly, but should we do the ECRI updates? So we've kind of done all of the updates before we dig in on the kind of tofu-y part of the discussion.
Fine with that.
Cool. Priscilla, do you mind giving an ECRI update, and then we'll move back to the climate justice strategy?
Yeah, sure. I'll be very brief. So I have 3 updates to share. One of them being that the Executive Committee of the Environment Council convened twice over the summer. We typically don't, but we did meet to continue planning for our strategic planning process that centers equity and justice. So come September, we'll be asking the full board to vote on a memorandum of agreement with the National Wildlife Federation, who's providing some funding to kick off strategic planning. So our official meeting as a board will discuss strategic planning and how we plan to really engage members and non-members as well across the state will happen on September 14th. We typically meet on the first Monday of the month, but because of the primaries, we pushed back our meeting schedule. So September 14th, the full board will meet. During that meeting, there's also going to be a presentation by Rhode Island Forest Partnership, Forest Values Partnership, if I got that correctly. But this is an interesting report just analyzing forest in Rhode Island, and it's going to get into some of the issues pertaining to climate change, development, intersections with renewable energy, public health, and so on. So it should be a pretty interesting presentation and report. We'll have all that information on the website along with an executive summary of the report. We'll also on September 14th talk about offshore wind developments, and I'm drawing a blank, sorry. But anyhow, the agenda will be posted online and we will be convening online. And then the following week, now on the 3rd Monday of the month, the political committee will be convening, and so will the executive committee. So we'll make all that information available as well as the Zoom links, and it's on the environmentcouncilri.org, or just let me know and I can share that with you all. But the last thing is pertaining to those 2 updates is that the political committee is working on our green report card. So every 2 years, the Environment Council of Rhode Island releases a green report card where we evaluate the environmental issues that the General Assembly voted on. We also do a qualitative assessment of the governor and her stance on the environment and what progress the administration has made. It's going to be a very interesting report card because the General Assembly in the past few years has not passed a single energy or environmental bill. And then with this current session, it was interrupted by COVID. So it's going to be really a subjective qualitative assessment, but we think it's going to it says a lot that the General Assembly in the past 3 years or so has not voted on a single energy and environmental bill. So we hope to release that green report card in the next 2 weeks, I want to say. And that's all I've got. Sorry, that was fast. I can answer any questions.
Thanks, Priscilla. That was awesome. Does anyone have any questions for Priscilla? No questions today. You guys are like listening. Should we jump back to Emily? Do you want to talk us through the climate justice piece? Oh, Tina, were you about to say something?
Yes, I've had 2 attendees having their hands raised for quite some time. Do you want me to save them for public comment, or how do you want me to with that?
Thank you for flagging that. I totally did not see that. Let's if they're questions, which you obviously don't know because they just have their hands raised, but for the folks with their hands raised, looks like Judy and Doug, let's let them, if it's pertaining to what we've talked about so far, guys, we'll unmute you and you can each ask your question or say your piece. But if it's something that's just general public comment, when we unmute you, just say, oh, this is general public comment, and we will have time for public comment at the end. So Judy, do you want to go first? Because I think your hand raised was early.
Yes. Judy?
I just wanted to say I'm here at the meeting. Glad to be here.
Hi, Judy. Good to have you. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Doug, did you have a comment too?
I just, can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you.
Oh, great. So in relationship to rats, I think it's very important and something that is long overdue. I just wanted to add to the conversation, and it may be in already, but I didn't hear it, that rats are part of a food chain. And rats are eaten by hawks, owls, cats, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And toxins in the rats actually get transferred up the food chain and actually compromise our urban wildlife vitality. So I would ask that that be a note that somehow gets included into it so that we're thinking about protecting our urban wildlife also. And the other thing, I don't know if you know, but I'm a garden leader at Peace and Plenty Community Garden on Peace Street. And we have a 46 plot community garden. We worked with a couple neighbors and 3 different neighbors to help them clean up their backyard, their backyards, and that was terrific. However, what got unearthed were a lot of rats' nests, and the rats then came hungry into the garden, not only hungry, but looking for other types of shelter for them. So we saw a real uptick in tomatoes getting bites out of them, corn stalks being chewed off, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think when I just encourage us to look at the toxicity issue and the rat issue in relationship to community gardens and growing, people trying to grow food and being frustrated with invasions. Not only is it just the rats, but it was also the heat this summer that I'm attributing to climate change. And so the rodent visitors to the garden were thirsty, not only thirsty, but hungry. So we saw quite an uptick in damage, quote unquote, to some of the produce that was being grown there. So thank you for listening. I appreciate your work you're doing, and I give you a thumbs up all the way around.
Thanks, Doug. That's really important. Thank you for raising all of that. Carlos, did you want to jump in?
Yes, I want to, Doug, I think that's a incredibly important concern as we, seek to coexist with wildlife in our city, and urban wildlife in Providence is increasing because of the corridors have been successful, the wildlife corridors in general, that are around Providence and connect us to forested areas and etc. And I think that's super important. And Doug has inspired me to volunteer to do a little literature search of best practices to avoid that toxicity going up the food web, especially for it affects all kinds of animals, but especially carnivores, which I have a special interest in, urban carnivores. So yeah, I think we should I volunteer to do a little literature search of what people are doing and how people are tackling this issue. So,
oh, cool. Thanks, Carlos.
Yeah. And I can share the results of that, maybe, write it up on one page or something.
That'd be great. Yeah, thank you so much for raising that, Doug, and Carlos for offering that too.
And Leah's having a little trouble coming off mute, but she was just saying that it's worth mentioning that because so many restaurants are closed, that the dumpsters where they normally would go to for food don't have food in them. And so that's making them go to some of these other places, especially as Doug mentioned with the heat and lack of water. So I know we had some in our compost bin in our backyard, which I had to then line with chicken wire to keep it from being a disaster. But cool. Any other comments or questions? Awesome. Thanks. That was really great. Emily, how about the tofu-y meat part of the, the discussion?
Tofu-y meat. Yeah, I'm actually going to pass it to our awesome intern, Ellie, who really drove the research to align the targets and metrics that our office has set in a number of plans.
Great.
So,
thanks, Ellie.
Yeah, I think everyone was sent the document shortly before the meeting, but it's a PDF called Data Summary. I think it's called Data Summary, but I'll just kind of summarize what some context and what I've been working on. So in 2019, the Climate Justice Plan includes 23 different targets and 16 targets to develop. And then in 2014, the Sustainable Providence Plan included 27 metrics. And then on the sustainability dashboard, there are 17 metrics currently being tracked. So there's some discrepancies between the targets and metrics and strategies of the different plans and what we're tracking and not tracking. So I kind of audited everything and aligned the targets, the metrics, and then the broader areas of these two plans. The PDF includes a data summary of like the specific number of targets that we're tracking and not tracking. So I'll skip over that because it's pretty dense. And then in general, the next steps would be to hopefully create a metric working group that will help the office decide which metrics to prioritize and refine, because there are a total of 76 metrics that have been identified and 56 targets that have been identified. So that's too much to include all on the dashboard. So we need to prioritize which ones should be tracked publicly on the dashboard, tracked internally, and then not currently tracked or tracked at a future point in time. And to decide what to do with each target and metric, we'll use the following factors. So first, input from this task force and the REJC. Secondly, whether the metrics are being tracked by other departments. Third, which metrics is actually possible to gain the data for. Fourth, to prioritize targets with sooner end dates. Fifth, to make sure that we include a few targets from each different areas so that we tackle a broad range of goals. And then finally, to prioritize equity-focused targets that have historically been ignored. So that's kind of a summary of the whole project. And then you should have also received a PDF of the spreadsheet that aligns each individual target and metric and the area, etc.
And for task force members and members of the public, you'll remember that I think it was maybe our June or our May meeting where we discussed this, and Emily had put together a really awesome summary, both going through all the metrics in the sustainability plan as well as the climate justice plan. And we talked through a little bit like the different ways that they aligned and didn't align. And Emily in the office, we're going to come back and kind of chew on it a bit and figure out, if there were ways to kind of like track them together. Emily, cut me off if I'm going astray. So this is an update to that. Yeah, go ahead.
This was a really helpful process that Ellie helped put into spreadsheet form. So essentially we have two different documents that use kind of different language in a way. So the climate justice plan has objectives and often very quantitative targets, whereas the Sustainable Providence plan, we had been tracking highest priority actions. There were also specific metrics from the Sustainable Providence plan, but often the goals and strategies of the Sustainable Providence plan were more generic. And so our goal here, and you can see this in the spreadsheet, is to see which specific targets and metrics that we may or may not be tracking are either in a specific area from the Sustainable Providence plan or the Climate Justice plan, and then work to merge those larger goals, set specific targets, and start measuring those targets with metrics. And so it's a pretty big universe, as Ellie outlined, with 70 sub-metrics. So I think it'll be really a really important process to go through and decide what we're going to track in real time and how we're going to really prioritize our time with reporting and making that reporting open to the public, of course.
And so, Emily, can you talk through a little bit, or Ellie, or both, a little bit of how you'd like the ESTF to be part of this process going forward? And I've shared the document on the screen so folks can see what it looks like. Members of the public, you should be able to access it from the portal, and ESTF members, you should have it at the top of your inboxes because I sent it to you at like 4:05.
Yeah, so I think we thought it would be helpful to form a small working group with, if there were members of the task force and members of the RAJC that would be interested in meeting and really like operationalizing, just looking at the current targets. Something that was raised was we're going to have to actually outline where the frontline communities are, since many of our targets and goals are specifically around frontline communities. So there's just specific questions about how we're going to set targets and measure metrics.
Awesome. Are there any comments or questions kind of around the table before we start thinking about which ESTF members might like to be part of this effort? Just any comments or questions about this? My first is like, oh my gosh, just going through this, like there's so much. So it's very exciting.
Sometimes, like that Ellie really laid out, that often there are metrics that don't have a larger target. Maybe they were set in the Providence plan, or it's just logical to track the number of bike lanes the miles of bike lanes that we have, but we haven't set a specific goal towards that. So deciding how those align, are we going to have multiple metrics or really only one metric per target, and those kinds of
I'm going to stop sharing just so I can see everyone and call on anyone who's trying to jump in here. Amelia?
I'm not sure if I completely know what we're all talking about right now, but the way that we originally set all of those metrics and goals was much larger working groups of experts from kind of outside the task force. I don't know if it makes sense to sort of bring together people around the different topic areas like food, water, kind of like experts in the area, so that we can have another chance to broaden the number of people who are involved and kind of answer those questions that you're posing.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, Amelia, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I definitely think that is the intent with this working group. It doesn't just have to be ESTF and REJC members, and our challenge is not necessarily, well, there's some component of trying to figure out what is the right metric, because some of them we haven't really figured out the data, but we are looking for a working group who can really dive in and help us connect with those other experts. And, you know, where there isn't an obvious data source, do some outreach to outside experts who could help us identify that. So I think we just want are looking for a core group who can really support that effort and but primarily help us narrow down, and then we can do the research or a bulk of the research to figure out, you know, what is the precise metric or you know, support that piece of it. But I think a big part of it is really just helping us decide what we are really putting our time and energy into tracking and reporting on the dashboard.
I'm happy to volunteer.
Oh, nice. So Amelia is on. She's in. And just a quick other note that I just want to add that I think sometimes when we start talking about metrics and dashboards, it can sound like really in the weeds or less exciting than some of the doing. But I just want to take a step back and also say, and others can jump in, but I think it's really exciting for the city to be so focused on these metrics and how they're going to measure success, because it's one thing to kind of have these really ambitious and really ambitious plans, and another to actually be focused on implementing them. There are so many plans at the state and city level that just exist and are exciting and then go on a shelf and never really get implemented. So really focusing on how, and you can't manage what you don't measure. So really focusing on how we're measuring success and focusing on that, I think, is so important, and just really exciting, a really exciting opportunity for the task force and the REJC to help shape kind of which parts of that are really being measured and reported on, and kind of helping the city keep themselves in check. Not that we don't know that you guys are working so hard on this, but I think it's really important to see you guys so focused on transparency in this way. So I just kind of want to say that too. But I'll stop. Who else has thoughts or questions or would like to be part of the effort?
I definitely would love to be part of the effort. As far as your comments, I'm thinking about how this would be a really great opportunity to exercise the framework of going about solving such metrics holistically, and building partnerships through this, as I imagine the amount of bandwidth that one has to invest into such initiatives.
Awesome. Thanks, Susanna. Any other thoughts? Julian, you came off mute.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that it's great to see kind of getting concrete about how to achieve the big goals that were set out in the climate justice plan, and I'm happy to see that. I wish I had more time and capacity to volunteer for that right now, so I can't be on a lot of the meetings, but happy to, if it's helpful at a certain stage, once things are kind of narrowed down, to be available for bouncing off ideas or anything like that, if that would be useful. And I think one thing to put on with it is also kind of the accountability measures. I think they're really important for holding not just the city accountable or those in the city who are working on these things, but also thinking about who are the other agencies or institutions that also need to be held accountable in order to reach these targets, and making that be a clear part of it. So if it's, DEM or RIPTA or, for some of the emissions ones or whatever the metric might be, kind of making that clear on there so that it's so that people know when they're looking at them, if we're not doing so well in one of these areas, who can be pushed on that as well, and maybe clear that it needs to have kind of all these different agencies at both the city and the state level involved in order to reach them.
Really good point.
Chair Anderbois?
Yep.
I caution the members that make sure we don't have more than 4 members from ESTF on any given committee. We do not want to violate any open meetings laws by having 5 members, which would constitute a quorum.
Okay, thank you, Tina. That's a really great reminder. Thank you. So it looks like we have 2 folks, and then Julian's available for questions or ideas. Anybody else really interested in being part of the working group? Yeah, Jesus.
I feel weird, even though I am the REJC, I feel weird just taking that on without talking to the rest of REJC. I don't know if that makes sense, but like I feel like there's interest and there'll be interest in the room, but like I don't know how I would use my capacity. Yeah, so that's just where I'm at.
Oh, cool. No, that makes total sense. And maybe if you talk to other members of the REJC and there's someone else who's interested, or if they want to empower you to do that, we can follow up with Emily or yeah, that sounds great.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you all for offering. And Jesus, I can follow up with you and Vadik about getting interest from the REJC.
Awesome.
Thanks, Emily. I also am kind of a sucker for strategic planning. It's kind of my jam. So if I can be helpful in any of the metrics pieces too, I'm happy to be helpful.
Yeah, and I'm happy
cool.
to be helpful as well. I don't want to commit myself because of the capacity constraints and also kicking off a strategic planning process with the Environment Council in my day job. But I think this is exciting just to look at recognizing the alignment so we can be more effective in achieving the systemic changes and targets that we want to hit. So yeah, I'm happy to be a resource. I'm not sure how the working group will evolve or what level of commitment it will be, but hopefully later in the fall I could be more involved. Just not right now. I can't say yes.
Thanks, Priscilla. And we can also have it as a future agenda item on ESTF meetings if that's helpful to ping multiple votes at a time as the working group moves forward.
Great. I like
that. Cool. So the other thing on the agenda, two other things. One is just going around the table in case folks have. Amelia.
I just wanted to flag that Doug has another comment.
Oh, thanks. I need to keep that screen up. Doug, do you want to share your comment or question? Thanks, Amelia.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity. Regarding the task force and looking at the metrics, I just want to ask folks to think about maybe reaching out to neighborhood leaders, to the Providence Coalition of Neighborhood Associations. There are maybe some people on those lists that who are active in that that might be wanting to come more fully and bring more of individual neighborhood presence into this effort. And along with that, is there thinking about, not just a charrette, which kind of showcases what you're doing and getting information, a public charrette, but a way that, the real resident of Providence, the real residents of Providence are involved at some level. And I know that's kind of a big task, but I think it's really critical that, in my way of thinking, that that those residents also are in the driver's seat, and they're not just being told, now this is going to happen. We've decided this. That who is the we here? And I think it's really critical for us all to keep that question in mind as we're moving forward. If we're really speaking about equity, if we're really speaking about, canceling out the disparities. Anyway, so thank you. I'm going to unmute myself.
Thanks, Doug. That's really helpful input. And also, I'm going to.
Sue,
oh, yeah, go ahead, Leah.
Go ahead. No, sorry. You can finish your.
No, please.
Thought.
Go for it.
Well, I think, Doug, you raised a really great point, and just like we have this ECRI seat and we do ECRI updates, I wonder if there's a way we could better liaison with the neighborhood groups and do back and forth, one person on the task force that is updating the Providence neighborhood associations and vice versa, or something, some way of keeping that line, a better line of communication between the two groups.
Great idea, Leah. Doug, if you wouldn't mind coming back off mute at some in a sec, is there like a regular meeting of the Providence Coalition of Neighborhood Associations in a way that like one of us could go to those meetings and a representative from that coalition could attend these, or as new seats open up, that's something we could keep in mind as a regular seat, or even just like a regular agenda item for updates? Doug, are you able to unmute?
I'm sorry, I just left for a moment. I didn't exactly what you said, Sue, because I'm not on video. I can go to the bathroom if I have to. Excuse me.
No worries. Leah brought up a great point that we have seats, open seats for members of the REJC, as well as one open seat for an ECRI member, so we can have regular lines of communication. We were wondering if there was a way that we could be better liaising between this group and the Providence Coalition of Neighborhood Associations. Like if you guys have a if they have a quarterly or monthly meeting that we should be attending, or vice versa, there's a way that we could be better connecting with that group to then connect to the broader neighborhood associations. If you had thoughts on that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for repeating. I'm sorry I wasn't.
No worries. We've all done that.
Yay. Anyway, I've been busted. Anyhow, yes, so the Providence Neighborhood Coalition of Neighborhood Associations, John Goncalves has been elected as city councilor. So it is now in kind of a transition. We're looking at our first meeting to be either in September or October this year. And would I say, would it be helpful for somebody here to attend those meetings? Yes, however, everything that's talked about at the meetings may not be necessarily directly translatable. I'm not quite sure. And I want to respect everybody's time. So I guess, Sue, what I would say is pose your question to the coalition itself. So that can be a question that we can talk about as members of the coalition, because the coalition includes most neighborhoods in Providence. It's a good question.
Doug, would you mind if I followed up with you just to figure out how to be in contact with the Providence Coalition of Neighborhood Associations? I can just shoot you an email and find out how I can get on. Okay, cool.
Please do. I don't mind at all. Anybody, email me at any time.
Great.
And I think that's just an overall a good thing for us to continue thinking about, is like how, when we are narrowing down what targets and metrics we track, how are we sharing that process that we go through, and how do we make available the comprehensive like bank of 76 metrics that we have offered, and then narrow that down to present a more accessible kind of dashboard that offers a higher level overview for the general public to more easily kind of view the city's progress towards our sustainability goals.
And I also think it's pretty easy as groups get together and you're doing good work and getting traction and doing the good work and doing the necessary work to begin to suffer from the effect of siloing. And so I just really want to say there should be some statement about anti-siloing behavior with many of the city departments, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we're all in this together. It's quite complicated. I get it. I really get it. I really get it. But this group won't be successful. Will be more successful, I believe, if you are questioning. If you can raise the question. Are we siloing ourselves at this point or not? Once in a while. Anyways, thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Great. So we reached the point of the meeting where we're going to talk a little bit about our next meeting, as well as go around the table for updates. And so the quick update on next meeting's topics I've heard from you all. which we're looking into, are thinking comprehensively about transportation and transit in Providence and all of the kind of proposals that are coming up right now and the policies and at the state and local level. Chatting with Liza, who I think might be on the call, or maybe she was and has left, from the Providence Streets Coalition to think through what that looks like. And she's also on the Bike and Pedestrian Council, Advisory Council. It's like, what's the A? So we're thinking about that maybe as a topic for September or October. I also heard interest in talking a little bit more about some solar in the city and community solar, and how neighborhood residents can take advantage of those types of programs, and how that all kind of relates to what we were talking about with community aggregation, and how all those things relate together. So that's another potential topic. But maybe we could go around the table and folks can share updates, and if there are other things that you'd like to be, so two things: one, any updates you have, upcoming events or things you want others to be aware of, and two, if there are other things you'd like to be on the agenda for upcoming meetings for discussion. So I will turn it over to, just going in order on my screen, Priscilla.
I don't have anything else to share off the top of my head, but I will say that I would love to talk next time we meet more about transportation and solar siting, because there are a lot of studies that the state's also releasing us. You and others might know through that pertain to renewable energy siting and also transportation and carbon pricing. So it would be great to tie it back to what the city's doing in the climate justice plan.
Awesome. Thaddeus.
Yeah, I guess the only update I'll say is was already shared. We have the CIP proposal meeting on Thursday, the 27th, from 6 to 7:30. If folks do have connection to communities of color in either South Side of Providence or the Oliveville, Manton region area, we still will accept surveys from folks leading up to the meeting. So I can send an email with the survey both in English and Spanish, so people can send that out to their communities. And also there'll be a $5 stipend for folks who can fill that out. Yeah. And can I pass it to Jesus, or?
Yeah, and no, you can pass it to Jesus. And also, if you could send that survey directly to me, and then I'll email it to all the task force members right after. Because if you send an email to all the task force members, I think it's like a public meetings thing.
Okay, I'll send it to you then.
I'm trying to I see Tina right above you, so I'm like trying to follow the rules. And you passed it to Jesus.
Hey. As towards other updates, I'm not really sure. Besides the green justice zones, just looking forward to continuing to work with our Roger Williams. I always want to say Roger Williams grant, and his Robert Wood Johnston grant with the the Department of Sustainability. And I think that's exciting. I think something cool that y'all brought up, or that I thought was cool, was the urban predators, or I forgot what the word was, but I didn't even fathom urban things that can eat me. And so I really appreciate that.
That sounds like kicking it over to Carlos.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm having problems unmuting myself throughout today. But no, the update that I had, or the thing that I wanted to share, is actually probably all of you have heard of this, but I just learned about it, I think, yesterday. There is a situation in Roxbury, Massachusetts, that I think we should pay close attention to, because I think this is something that has happened in Providence at several points, which is there's this community in Roxbury is protesting the removal of several old growth trees. I think there's many of them. And they're framing it as an environmental racism, environmental justice issue. because basically it's a community predominantly of color, in which basically trees that they have had for a long time have been slated for removal. And it's actually for a bike lane. So it's a complex situation, because bike lanes are good for sustainability, but then if you're removing these old growth trees that are community values, so I think, I don't know, I think this is something that and it's so close to here as well, I think something we should pay attention to. I seen it happen. For example, I think I mentioned this before because I was so incensed by this. We had the open green area right next to Mount Pleasant High School. Many trees were removed to turn it into athletic fields, which again is something good, right? To have opportunities for recreation. But these trees were used on these common green areas that were not wild, but they were open green areas. They were used by people and valued by the community, and they were also removed, and I don't know where I want to take this, but I think this is something that should be on our radars. So I just wanted to bring it up.
Thanks, Carlos.
I don't know if anybody had heard about it or knows more about this situation than me, but and to think about why certain trees in certain communities never get removed, but in some other communities with less power, those trees get removed. Like I don't know. It's yeah, that was it.
Yeah. No, thanks, Carlos. That's really important. I don't know if you guys saw, there's also, I think it was the New York Times, there was a story today about how, I'll double check where it was, but there's been a study of like formerly red-lined neighborhoods in urban areas and green-line neighborhoods, and the red-line neighborhoods on particularly hot days tend to be at least 5 degrees Fahrenheit hotter. And so as you think about climate change and tree removal and yeah. Let's pass it to Julian.
Hi all. It's hard for me to think of anything that's not wrapped up in the world of COVID response. That's pretty much my 24/7 reality these days. And unfortunately, it's not slowing down all that much. So that's most of what I'm thinking of. And if anyone has any questions around COVID, my role specifically is with kind of the health equity in the most impacted communities. So Central Falls and Pawtucket, and my colleague working on the same initiative is focused on Providence. So I'm not the direct liaison for Providence, but happy to answer any questions that people have around kind of the overall coordination of what's all of it. In terms of kind of Providence and environmental related issues, the one thing I think I could have to share as an update is around just an update on some of the Port of Providence and air quality work being done. So one is that there was Rhode Island announced a couple weeks ago the largest air quality settlement ever in the state's history. So it was DEM and the Attorney General's office against Sims Metal. And so there was a metal shredder that was operating without a permit, and it was found in violation of the Clean Air Act. It was based in Johnston, Rhode Island, so it wasn't a Providence issue, although air does generally move from west to east, so could have impacted some of the folks in kind of Olneyville area closer to Johnston. But there was I believe around $750,000 settlement, and a few $100,000 in that are going towards enforcement and air quality monitoring, and it will provide some funds to set up air quality monitoring in the Port of Providence area, at least initial, not the full comprehensive one. There's still some gaps there, but it'll be a big step forward. And that's because Sims Metal also has operations on the Port of Providence where they export the scrap metal overseas. So that'll be a big advancement. I don't have the specific updates on the timeline of setting that up, but there is some work going forward there. And then just on a personal level, I want to share that now that I've been working from home more these days in Washington Park here, is that there's been still a lot of real intense odors, especially if the winds are coming from the east, and you can usually tell which way it is by looking at the wind turbines in the port area. If you see them kind of flat at you and spinning counterclockwise, that means the wind is coming towards you, and that's usually when you can smell it pretty strongly. Usually a mix of probably asphalt, sewage, and petroleum odors. It's not clear, it's probably multiple sources, not any one individual odor. It's kind of all of it there. But just a reminder to everyone, if you do or you are in the area and you smell odors, to call it into DEM. It's important for them to kind of be getting notifications and complaints from people, because when the companies say that there's no problem, they point to the call record and say, oh, no one called it in, there's no problem. So please keep calling it in every day, every time.
Thanks, Julian. Who hasn't gone yet? Susanna?
There was a lot of information to digest. So what I was thinking about before coming to the meeting is how are we going to address equity? Everyone here on this task force, and who beyond everyone here on this task force, who's going to be part of the decision-making process, and what does transparency look like? What does accessibility look like as far as for communication? Because all the work that we're doing individually and collectively is so important and directly impacts our communities. And I really truly want to see how the communities are engaged and how they're able to also make an impact for, well, their own lives in this, align with the work that we're all doing. So, and thank you, for having me here. I'm really, really excited to take on the work and to learn from you all.
Thank you for being here. We're really lucky to have you. And last but not least, I think Amelia.
Yeah, I just have a couple things. One, I was really excited to see that Sims Metal settlement. I was like celebrating over email, you know. Love to see those settlements. And just responding to Carlos's comment about the old growth trees, and that might be something to just bring up to the folks who are organizing the urban tree plan, the urban forest planning process. Sue's colleague Sheila at the Nature Conservancy can pass the message along maybe, but it's something, you know, something to put into that plan to think as something to think about for the city to think about when we are making development decisions and what trees get taken away and community involvement in all of that. And then I wanted to say, for anyone I will represent Groundwork Rhode Island in this next comment, which is where I work. We are doing a project on green infrastructure in 4 neighborhoods in Providence. It's based on watershed, so it's focused on the Roger Williams Park Ponds watershed. So it's sort of South Providence and the kind of Elmwood and lower Elmwood and lower Broad street areas, as well as the Wenasquatucket River watershed, so mainly Olneyville and the Manton area. And then the West River watershed, which is sort of Branch Avenue near the Stop and Shop. Folks know Stop and Shop over there. And then what was the Mashpog Pond, so which is Reservoir Triangle neighborhood. So we are installing these bioswales in the right-of-way on the sides of roads and in between the sidewalk and the curb. And so if anyone who's listening or anyone on the task force, if you live in those neighborhoods or are aware of any locations or residents who might be interested in sort of being involved in identifying locations for those bioswales, we would love the assistance and kind of prioritize places that people tell us about, so that we know that there's going to be ongoing stewardship of the bioswales. They're basically just planted areas. We remove pavement, we remove part of the curb, and then stormwater is able to get into these planted areas. So if anyone's interested in learning more about that or wanting to identify locations for us, I am more than happy to talk with you.
Awesome. Thanks, Amelia. Did I miss anybody on the task force? It looks like we do have a few hands raised, so we'll listen to some public comment and then can adjourn, but would love to hear the public comment. So Greg Garrett, you will be unmuted.
I think I'm on.
You're on. Yeah.
All right. I just wanted to, I really wanted to say I appreciate Carlos's thoughts on that predator stuff and Doug's, and I'm happy to help. I have a little bit of knowledge in that area. The other thing is that when you were talking about equity, one of the things to think about is how that relates to economic development and how that relates to who gets permits. Some of us have started a very small conversation about that, and I wanted the rest of you to know about it. And you know, I don't know who has time to participate in that. We've had one Zoom. We'll be doing another one at the end of this week on Thursday, and you know, people are welcome to do that. If you contact Sue, Sue is able to get to me, or Priscilla can get to me. And these are things that, you know, how, you know, part of it is equity is not only based on income, it's also based on assets. And so the real estate game in Rhode Island is a real, you know, it's a cornerstone of their economic development policy, but it also makes a lot of the things about inequality much worse. So we've been trying to figure out how to look at economic development through an environmental justice lens. And I'm hoping all of you will help us in some way or form.
And if folks are interested, I have the Zoom info for that. So feel free for that call Greg mentioned. So feel free to shoot me a note and I can send that along. Cool. It looks like, oh yeah, go ahead, Carlos.
Yeah, thank you so much, Greg. I would love to at some point communicate to talk more about that issue, you know, with bioaccumulation and toxins and urban wildlife. So I kind of get your information through Sue.
Yep.
Okay.
Carlos, I'll do an email intro between the two of you. Does that sound good?
Excellent.
Nice.
That's great. Thanks.
Just made a little note. It looks like Linda Perry. Do you have a comment?
I'm trying to unmute her.
Oh, there you are, Linda. I think you're unmuted.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Susan. And everybody had some very valuable information that they shared. It was pretty informative, and thank you in particular, Julian, what you're doing at the health department. I know that you're afraid and very busy.
Linda, you're cutting in and out.
And everyone's a big deal. Can you hear me?
Yeah, but you're coming in and out a little bit.
I don't know how to fix that because I don't have headphones. So all I could do is make sure I'm plugged in. And so if I continue to talk, tell me if you can't hear me, okay?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. The Sims issue is a big deal in our neighborhood in South Providence, as well as the trees. But I'm going to address the Sims issue right now. Recently, I've noticed a change on Allen's Avenue with Sims, and unbeknownst to me, I believe it was in sync with their reducing their footprint in Johnston because of the penalties. They've increased their footprint on Allen's Avenue to the point where I think they have a shredder. And I know that one of the issues in Johnston was they had no permit for shredding. They went on for years and the neighborhood caught wind of it, no pun intended, and that was instrumental in shutting them down. In the meantime, the past several months, they've increased their footprint on Allen's Avenue, and I'm very concerned about that. And there is a lot more fugitive dust. So there is a real EPA and DEM issue that needs to be addressed. The environmental task force maybe could help in that, you know, because there's so many things that are down here that need to be addressed. I also work with Doug and Cassie, and I've worked with the people on the tree planting initiative, and with Liza Birkin on the bike pathway. We realized that there's no connection with DOT and the plant trees, and this cannot be more prevalent than they're doing right now on Allen's Avenue, where they are tearing up the sidewalk where there's old growth trees and cutting down 5 feet for a curb, new sidewalk, new curb on Allen's Avenue. God knows why they need it there. There's already a curb, but they're ripping it up and believe they're going to kill trees. I'm working with Doug and my council person to plant trees on Allen's Avenue in that exact spot. We had a discussion about it. So one of the things is just to subliminally flip the script, change the narrative on Allen's Avenue, and put in more trees. Years ago, Doug Still and I believe it was Peter Simon, former director of health, did a study on the tree growth in the in Providence, all of Providence. In South Providence, 02905 Washington Park area, the port has, it's all in red, like cherry red. Northern part of Rhode Island and different parts of the city, northern part of Providence and different parts of the city are blue-green shaded, you know, so we have a heat island down here, which exacerbates all of the issues, all the environmental issues. And we need to change that. I really want more trees, more community involvement, you know, just more green. And my motto, and I think Julian knows this, if you smell something, say something, you know, on Allen's Avenue. It's been that way for a long time. You know, there's Sims, there's Spray, there's a whole host of people. None of them good, none of them clean. Rhode Island Metals, you know, so that gets me to my last point, Sue, that you're aware of, and that is the promotion of the idea of a community solar field at the former transfer station site. And I'm just putting it out there. I'm reaching out for support for that issue. I know my council people and other people want to support it, but I really would like the REJC and the Environmental Sustainability Task Force to adopt this issue somehow, you know, to want it to happen, or to collaboratively help with the process. And so that's my comment section.
Great. Thank you, Linda, for all of that. And I feel like I've really learned, like, if you smell something, tell someone has been like my one of the big learnings.
If you smell something, say something.
Okay.
If you smell something, say something. I think there should be a billboard on Allen's Avenue that says that.
Yeah.
And I'm working with people from Green Energy on a billboard on Allen's Avenue, if the city doesn't ban them, about coming to the neighborhood, clean green energy, and that reflects the windmills, the 3 new windmills that are going in, the 3 new wind turbines that are going in the port and at Johnson and Wales.
And just to clarify, you're talking about the company Green Energy Development, not the nonprofit
Correct.
Green Energy Consumers Line.
Yes, Green Energy Development, you know, is putting in 3 new windmills, and I wanted to get a billboard on Allen's Avenue that says cleaner and greener coming to this area, you know, just to promote the idea, as well as trees down Allen's Avenue. And And I did sit in on the meeting that you were in on the solar sighting, with Christopher Currens, who hosted it, the solar sighting webinar, which was interesting. And I thought that we could have another discussion going forward on the Thurbers and Allens Avenue area in the future.
Awesome. Thanks, Linda. That's really helpful. You know, I was just clarifying because Priscilla works at the Green Energy Consumers Alliance.
Yes, I know.
They're a great partner on the community choice. So just for the public record that they are different organizations. It looks like we have also Judy has some public comment, Judy Plotz. So just want to make sure we hear from her too.
Hello, I'm here.
Hi, Judy. Go ahead.
The issue I want to talk about is the possibility of mass numbers of evictions of renters who cannot pay their rent. And there are many bad results if that happens. But how do we know if this is a problem and how big a problem in the Providence area? And who would be collecting the information about that and give us an early warning that this is happening? And at what level can we ask for a resolution or legislation to ward it off before it becomes a problem?
That's a great question, Judy. I don't know the answer to that. I'm looking around the room to see if any of the other task force members know. If not, we can look into that and bring that up at the next meeting. Julian, were you about to come off mute?
I don't know. In general, there's not very good data on evictions, and that's a huge problem. It's a lot of them, we find out about them after the fact, and it's really hard to predict. I think we can look at previous years where there are, we would probably expect a few thousand evictions between now and the end of the year. And I think in the context of a pandemic, any eviction is too many. I mean, I think in general, there's many health problems and things that can be linked to what happens, just the chain of effects that happens with displacement when people lose their home. And so that's always been the case, but I think especially during a pandemic, it's a massive, massive issue. And there are some studies nationwide looking at how many evictions are potentially pending or how many people are at risk of eviction. And the numbers are frighteningly high across the board in the country. The report that I saw in Rhode Island is from the National Low Income Housing Coalition, I believe is the name of it. And it's on the order of 100,000 people to 150,000 people, somewhere in that range, are potentially at risk of eviction due to COVID-19 and the financial impacts of it. So it's a huge, huge issue. And I think housing itself is a major environmental justice issue. So it's definitely something to keep our eyes on. And
would unemployment and unemployment claims give an indication of it's about to be a problem?
We can definitely make some predictions. I think the presence of the federal unemployment benefit, the $600 a week, while it's been present, probably reduced some of that, and the courts have been closed. So we haven't seen as many evictions being filed just because they weren't able to be filed, but the moratoriums have expired, the courts are reopened, and the federal unemployment ended. We have $300 benefit now instead of the $600, and it's temporary and it will be expiring. So I think that's part of how the report looked at making those predictions, but a lot of it's guesswork without seeing what's going to happen or preventing it from happening.
Go ahead, Amelia, and then Emily also had your hand up, I think.
I just wanted to, maybe Emily is about to say the same thing, but I wanted to tell Judy and everybody else, I received a email about a meeting that the mayor is hosting on Wednesday night at 6 p.m. It's a Zoom meeting about housing and anti-displacement. So it's kind of like the comprehensive housing strategy for the city. So that might be a place where somebody who knows more how to answer that question, they may not be able to, but in terms of data, but that would be a great place to ask.
That is what I was going to share. We scheduled this for tomorrow. It's being hosted by the mayor and our planning department, and they're going to preview the preliminary recommendations, and it's an opportunity for the public to provide feedback on Providence's anti-displacement and comprehensive housing strategy.
Emily, if you have that link, can you share it with me? And Judy, I can email it to you so you know what time that meeting is and how to connect.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emily. Thanks, Amelia. Cool. I think that was everybody because Doug had his comment earlier. Or Doug, did you have a final comment? Is that a new hand raise? I couldn't tell if that was old. Okay, Doug.
Everybody only gets one.
It's hard to tell when it's a new hand versus a residual hand.
Exactly. So first of all, every one of you is my hero, number one. So thank you so much for just pushing forward on these very complex issues and creating a channel for them to come through so as their birth to their next thing. I want to speak to a couple things quickly. One is I have been in support of Linda, actively in support of Linda in this plan to this idea to create a solar field on Allens Avenue as a banner to show what can happen on Allens Avenue. I'm celebrating the fact that Sims has been finally taken to task after how many years? So, and I'm very concerned. I live in the Elmwood and involved with both the Elmwood neighborhood and the South Providence neighborhood. And so we are at the border of all of this business that creates these high levels of asthma and, as Linda called it, fugitive dust. It's not only dust, it's not only smell, it's noise, and it's what you see. So call. I would like to also say that I think it's really critical to get the thrust of this work written into zoning somehow. And without it written into zoning law, we can do all the work, you guys can do all the work in the world, but if the zoning says something differently, guess where the favor is going to be? And from my point of view, zoning favors developers. And I think we need to have a new age where we're requiring developers to be partners with the neighborhoods that they're coming into. So they understand the neighborhood issues, and what they're developing there isn't adding to the problem, but it's adding to the solution. So I'd just like to add that piece, if you will. Sorry for being pushy with my comments, but I've been on my feet in Providence for 36 years, doing all kinds of grassroots kind of improvements, including probably 500 trees, street trees, that I'm responsible for planting in the south side of Providence. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Doug, and never apologize for being pushy. That's the whole point of having public forums, to say what you're going to. That's why we exist. So thank you. Thank you for everyone for all the really awesome comments. Are there any other comments or thoughts around the table before we adjourn? Table? Yeah, Amelia.
One more thing that I forgot to mention that I was curious about, because I know you said we might invite Liza Birkin from the Providence Streets Coalition for the next meeting. I was wondering, because I know that the Kennedy Plaza plans have been controversial. Is that what she was planning to talk about? And is there any opportunity to invite RIPTA or whoever else is part of that decision making, just to have it? Oh, I don't know if they already have other public forums where they're talking about it, but might be another opportunity for members of the public to hear the plans and what's happening. And I don't know the timeline, so just wanted to flag that.
That's a great idea. Yeah, I think we were going to talk about her talking about, and us talking in general about transportation and transit planning and how it's all fitting together. And so I think that would probably be a part of it as well. So having someone here from RIPTA and or RIDOT, probably RIPTA, makes a lot of sense. So thank you for raising that. Cool. Okay. So I think
Linda Perry has her hand raised again.
Okay. Linda, you can have the final comment and then we are going to adjourn.
Okay, the Jewelry District Association had a very good meeting, and they had slides and they showed the development for the hubs, the 3 hubs, and they are super instrumental and have a lot of skin in the game, so to speak. And because it's right in their back door. So it's all online and you can see that. But I know Lisa has other insight and wanted to tell you that.
Awesome. Thank you, Linda. I'll look those up. That's really great. Cool. Any other final comments around the table? Cool. Then can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Any seconds? Carlos seconds. Yeah. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Cool. Well, thank you guys so much. We are officially adjourned and we'll see you in September. And I'll send you some follow-up emails.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, Tina.
Tina.
Everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.